Hello and welcome. Today my guest is best-selling novelist Emma Heatherington from County Tyrone. Her emotionally driven stories have found audiences right across the UK, Ireland and beyond. Well, her writing has now taken on a deeply personal dimension because last year Emma was diagnosed with the lifelong, incurable blood cancer, multiple myeloma. She shared openly how that journey is shaping both her life and her work. We look forward to her exploring her writing and her determination and the strength that she brings to every page. Would you please welcome Emma Heatherington? It's lovely to have you on, Emma, and actually looking so very well. How's life at the moment?
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, what a difference a year makes. You know, it's been tough, but I'm still in recovery and very much looking forward to the future and enjoying life again, which I'm glad to say.
Can I take you back to that moment when you were given your diagnosis? What was that like for you?
Well, I was coming into 2024 on the crest of a wave career-wise. My latest novel this Christmas had just hit #1 in the UK ebook chart, and then I hit the Irish Times bestsellers, you know, right up at the top. So I was going into 2024 thinking this was going to be my year, really. I could feel, you know, everything was just moving in the right direction. And around February time, it all started to go terribly wrong. Symptoms that I suppose I had been having for quite a while, it just started to rise to the surface to a time where I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And, you know, looking back on the 12 months previous, I had quite a few trips to A&E and wasn't really getting the answers. And then in February, I had to go again. And this time it was discovered that there was something very badly wrong.
That must have been quite a blow to you. What does it feel like when, in that moment, when you're told?
Well, I mean, we hear of cancer every day, don't we? Every single family has their own story and experience. I think when you're told it yourself, though, you know, it's very, very different, especially when you're a mother and, you know, a daughter and you've all these responsibilities in life. You know, your whole world really does come crashing down. And then to hear the words incurable cancer, that was quite a shock, and it took a lot of time, I suppose, to get my head around that. But you know, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice, so you have to get up and get on with it and trust the system and trust the medical experts to get you through it all. So my whole year then looked a lot different because I had 6 months of chemotherapy to go through, followed by a stem cell transplant at the City Hospital in Belfast, and it was very, very it was tough on everyone. You know, I think cancer has a ripple effect on a whole family, and everyone's, you know, everyone deals with it differently as well. So again, as a mother, it's hard to watch your children and your family go through all that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, just talking about your family, how important were family and being a mum, a daughter, in getting you through that whole year?
I genuinely couldn't have done it without them, you know. Everyone was just absolutely amazing. I'm lucky to have a very, very big family first, but also very close family. We have 5 children, 4 of them are young adults, and the youngest had just turned, he turned 10, so he was 9 when I was diagnosed. He turned 10 the day I was admitted to City Hospital for the stem cell transplant. So of course our main concern was him. You know, he's the baby of the house, and so his 4, he's got 2 big brothers and 2 big sisters, and they really rallied around and helped him get through it all and helped us in turn by helping out with things like just keeping the house going, doing school runs, homeworks, grocery shopping. Everyone stepped up. And
everybody just pulls together.
They just pulled together, they really did. And you know, they struggled, of course they did, and I struggled with that, but you have to get on and say, like, you don't really have a choice. And like, I was very lucky to be looked after the most amazing medical team as well, and you just have to get through and stay positive as much as you can, but also allow yourself time to get, you know, angry if you need to, or cry if you need to. A whole range
of emotions there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's quite a roller coaster.
Well, looking at positivity, you mentioned, you know, a lot of your writing is about hope and stories of love, stories of all of those emotions. You know, did you find that kind of this new chapter of your life has changed how you write?
I would say like 100% my job as a writer helped me get through it all emotionally. While the medicine fixed me physically, I think without having the ability to escape into that fictional world, I don't know how I would have coped emotionally, with the diagnosis. So I had a book deadline, as I do every single year, and I was quite determined to stick to that. So on good days, I would write, and that allowed me to step away from, the real life darkness that I was going through and go into this beautiful fictional magical world where I could still be in control of what happened. So I kept writing all through the chemotherapy, and my book came out that October as normal. I think all of life's lessons, I think any writer would say, help you, be a better writer, because you can, dig deeper and the layers get more emotional. I can put all that into my stories, and
so new layers of meaning, I suppose,
yes,
came through there in your writing.
Yeah, I tend to write a lot about maybe experiences that most people can relate to, but then when you can relate to them personally, you can write better about them.
And so many people can relate to what you've been going through there.
Exactly. Like I tend to keep my themes quite real. So I do touch on things, even though they are primarily love stories I write. You'll find the characters have very realistic backgrounds, so they don't just come, riding into the sunset. They have been through things like grief, and there's a lot of like motherhood and sisterhood and things that we can all relate to in life.
It's incredible that you saw your work as an escape, even a lifeline, maybe.
I think a lifeline, yeah, that's probably the best way to put it, because I went into hospital, for example, armed with box sets to watch and podcasts to listen to and all of that. But what I found, just stepping into my own imagination and creativity nearly helped me more, because, like I say, when you're diagnosed with an incurable cancer, you can't control any of it. And this was a world where I could still stay very much in control and still steer the ship, if you like, and bring my characters to life and get to know them, and that just helped me escape so much.
We've watched your progress. I mean, you very publicly put your illness and all that went with it on social media. Was that a help for you?
I think it was, and it wasn't really intentional. I think that just happened quite organically, because the amount of it's a very lonely feeling when you're diagnosed with cancer, and you kind of do feel like you're the only person who understands. But by doing that, I realised I wasn't the only person at all, and the messages that I got of support, first of all, and kindness really helped me through, but also hearing from other people who, like I had never heard of multiple myeloma before. I'd heard of all different blood cancers, but I hadn't heard of that. All of a sudden, I realised, that there are thousands and thousands of people across the UK and Ireland, of course, who are going through exactly the same thing as me. And just to have those people to chat to and to lean on. And now that I'm on the other side of the stem cell transplant, I'm doing the same for people who are just starting their journey. And like only this week, there are two people who are just being admitted to hospital, and I'm telling them, things that I learned and what to bring into hospital with you, and how to get through the tougher times. So it's been very, very, very helpful at all levels, I think.
So you're paying it forward now.
Yeah.
You've talked about having days of where you're scared, other days maybe when you're very determined, to get through this. How do you balance that, those feelings of realism against hope?
I think it sometimes can hit you when you're not expecting it. And especially, as I'm 12 months now into recovery from the stem cell transplant, and the first 6 of those months were extremely hard. A lot of physical pain, a lot of appointments, a lot of medication still, and weaning myself off, some of the heavier medication.
And not knowing what the outcome was going to be, I suppose.
And never knowing, because month to month it could all change, and I still have to live with that reality that every month I'm going in to hear what the next month's going to bring. So that can kind of hit hard when you least expect it. So I think the more that you have to distract you from that, the better. And that's where I find, being in the creative industry has really helped me so much, that I can distract myself. And I know that not everyone has that to tap into. But I do think keeping your head busy is so important.
Yeah. This year, 2026 is going to be a big year for you and a slightly different direction. Tell us what you're planning.
Yeah, so back to that time in 24 when I mentioned earlier, one of my big projects for that year was going to be a country musical. Now I had the bones of the script written, you might say, at that stage, and I was starting to put everything into place. And when I received the news, that year was going to be basically wiped out, I was absolutely heartbroken. But this year I have been working very hard again during my recovery on putting that all together again. And you know what, hindsight, it's much better now than it was back then. So I have dates booked for the Marketplace Theatre in Armagh, and I'm going to premiere Ireland's first contemporary country musical. And the country music is huge at the minute.
Oh, it's massive.
Massive. And this year's going to be so big, with Luke Combs coming to Slane for 2 nights, Country to Country coming to the SSE. Country music has just taken off, and I'm a huge country music fan and always have been, so I'm delighted. But really excited. I'm building my team at the minute of director, choreographer, musical director.
And you're casting, I know
and
you're
we're casting at the minute, yeah. So we're looking for the lead 2. We're looking for a leading male who can play guitar and sing, and we're looking for the country girl herself, the lead character. So it's very exciting, and who knows where it'll go next.
Well, we look forward to seeing Country Girl, a different direction for you. Just a very final question briefly. Of all that you've said, there'll be many of your readers tuning into this. What is the one thing that you would hope they would take from your experience over the past year or two?
I think try to look for the hope, no matter what you're going through, and to have that self-belief, that you can still do things. It's not over until it's over. And I always try to live in the moment, take things one day at a time, try not to get too scared of what's coming next, because none of us really know that anyway. So stay in the moment and allow yourself to be angry and to be sad, because I think that's important too, to balance out those emotions.
Be
and
kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself, yes, and be kind to others as well, because that makes you feel good too.
Emma Heatherington, it's a pleasure to speak to you, and continued good health. Thank you for joining me today. Well, now we're going to switch pace completely, because my next guest is somebody who knows all about drive and determination. But on the football field, we're back soon with Northern Ireland former football player and manager, David Jeffrey.
For 35 years, we have shared unforgettable stories on the big screen with you. From first dates to family nights, from blockbusters to indie gems. You've been with us every step of the way. The past was magic. The future, even brighter. Thanks for being part of our story. See you at the movies.
Welcome back. Our next guest is one of the most respected figures in Northern Irish football. Starting out with a trial at Manchester United, he returned home to make his mark at Linfield, first as a player and then as a manager, leading the club to an incredible 31 major honours. But the story's about much more than trophies. He's known for his sharp tactical mind and the way he's used sport to make a real difference in the community. Away from football, his work in social care and his faith have shaped everything he does on and off the pitch. Would you please welcome David Jeffrey. David, lovely to see you. What an incredible career you've had, both on and off the pitch.
Linda, thank you very much indeed for inviting me in, and I'm almost embarrassed.
Were you embarrassed by that introduction?
Very much so, very much so.
But it's all true.
And yeah, very much so. And we have a sort of a little standard for myself, and it's faith and family and football, and that has been sort of my bedrock. And God has been good and has blessed me greatly. I've enjoyed a career in the footballing world as a player and as a manager, albeit here at home in the Irish League. But I also trained as a youth and community worker first of all, and then I went back and trained as a social worker and ended up as a senior social worker working with older people and people with physical disability. So I've been able to marry the two, and that chapter has come to an end. Both of them I've now retired, but thankfully still involved with the football through.
Yeah, you're not fully retired, are you? You still do the punditry on matches, don't you?
BBC are very good, and have truly blessed me in terms of I do the radio and the television and the iPlayer, and the Belfast Telegraph have been very kind. I write a Saturday morning column. And I've got great help and great support there, but it means I can go to games, Linda, and watch them, and still I like to think be supportive of all that is Irish League football.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the Irish, well, probably the Irish League, but before that, where it all started, when you were a young man, you had a trial for Manchester United.
That was a story in itself, and I'll have to put this in context. I went to Sullivan. I failed my 11 plus miserably, went to the Dundalk Boys High School, and then my mother thought maybe Sullivan might be a better option, but Sullivan only ever played rugby. And so I played for school in the morning and football in the afternoon for a wee team called Hollywood Star. We weren't the best in the world. I remember one day getting beaten 25-0 by Hillsborough boys, still scarred to this day. But that led to an opportunity for me to go across on trial to Manchester United. The famous Bob Bishop, the Manchester United scout, organised it for me. And that really led then to going across to Manchester, where I was an apprentice professional, and then I signed a 3-year professional contract. And so I was at Manchester United for 3-4 years in a full-time capacity. Unfortunately, I wasn't good enough to make the grade. I was told so. And so I returned home here to Northern Ireland.
Did that hurt to be told that?
It did, Linda. To tell you the truth, as a child growing up, all I ever wanted to do was play football. My hero was George Best, who played for Manchester United. That's why my allegiance would be primarily to them. And with respect, it wasn't about them, the club. It was because my hero, George Best, was playing there. So always dreamed of getting across. So I only ever got as far as the reserves, but not making it was certainly a blow at the time, and yet on reflection now I see that was, I feel, part and parcel of God's plan for my life after Manchester United.
Yeah, there was a greater plan there. Some people, I suppose, I've heard people say that, you would have had that sort of premiership, you brought that kind of premiership standard to Irish League football, that sort of discipline. Did you get that from what you learned in England?
It was part of it, Linda, was obviously the experience in England, and you knew what full-time football looked like. But I've got to say, a big influence would have been Roy Coyle, who was my manager at Linfield, and he signed me for Linfield. Roy had his own extraordinary career, both as a player and as a manager. And he often jokes and said, I would say, you taught me an awful lot. I said, you probably taught me everything. And he would come back and say, well, I didn't tell you everything that I know, so yeah. But in all seriousness, his standards, how he went about things, I built on that understanding, and ultimately it was how you tried to get the very best out of the players that you had, and how you helped them, how you encouraged them, how you supported them. But
did that leadership thing there, was that always in you, David?
I suppose so, maybe recognised by others. I captained my primary school team. I was captain of the Hollywood Star when I played for the Northern Ireland schoolboys. I was captain again. But I always had it in my head, I didn't need an armband or a title to be able to lead or to contribute. And I always used to think that leadership, and before the terminology, they talk about collective leadership. Now, before that even came into being, I always sort of thought it was everybody's responsibility to stand up front and centre and to go forward. But I suppose that's something which was just part and parcel of my personality.
But then, you spent like over 17 years managing Linfield alone. Yeah. That's unheard of these days. Managers come and go, don't they?
Yeah, the time life of any manager is purely based on results, and it can be very short-lived. Again, I was blessed. to be 17 and a bit years as manager of Linfield. I never thought I would be there that long. I actually, in my own mind, had thought if I get 3 or maybe 4 years, that would be reasonable. And the great man, Roy Coyle, used to banter me and said, he used to say, well, how long do you think I'll be there? He was there for 15 odd years, but thankfully I was able to sort of go ahead and get that further time. And I've got to say, what I'm equally as proud of is my time at Ballymena United. I'm their longest serving manager of 7 years there. So my Linfield was massive. Ballymena United played a big part, and so I was able to have a long career at both clubs.
How important is winning to you?
Oh, vitally. Yeah, that's almost a change. It varies as much about winning. I have a little saying which, excuse me, when I'm talking in any, whether it's primary school children or young people at secondary school, so grammar school or whatever, I always say to them, be the best you can be. And for myself, I have a little second line, be the best you can be, for Jesus Christ died for me. So that is my, again, part of my foundation. After that is about winning. And it's about being the best. It's not about accepting second best of yourself. And that drive was very much, part and parcel of when I was a player, but also as a manager. So winning was very, very important.
You've mentioned your faith, and let's delve into that a wee bit now, because your faith pretty much underpins everything in football, in life, in a very much a results-driven environment, and how important winning is to you. How does that faith impact the decisions you had to make in management?
There's, again, and please don't think I'm being pious or whatever, but I have a very strong faith. I believe that my Father, God in heaven, is in control. I have given my life over to Him through my Lord Jesus Christ. My faith is very simple and very basic, but very, very strong. And in all things that I would do, I would be seeking, God's guidance. So, in terms of all decisions, whether it was maybe signing players when you were recruiting, or you were maybe having to allow people to leave the club, or if it was around team selection, or if it was about typical situations, I would try, very much to make sure that I'm doing it with knowing that God's in control of what I'm trying to do, and how do I best represent a Christian? How do I best represent someone of faith? And that's, and ostensibly how you treat other people. So in all of what goes on, that is my bedrock. My bedrock is my faith, and is it? And I suppose again, Linda, it's really simple. Is it the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Is it the right thing to bring a person to the club? Is it the right person to allow someone to leave? As I've said, even in team selection, I would go through it. I would take a great deal of time. And even if maybe I was leaving a player out of a team, taking the time to go and chat with them and say, listen, here's the reason why you're not in this week, but you're always looking to sort of give hope and encouragement. Now, sometimes the messages weren't well received, and you understood that, because I remember being disappointed as myself as a player, but it just impacts on every aspect of life.
Well, hope and encouragement is important. I know in 2023, in June 23, your partner Rose was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, and that must have been an incredibly difficult time for both of you. Did faith play a big part in just upholding you both then?
That was a most difficult time, and I remember it vividly, and we've come out the other end, so to speak. Rose has had her surgery. She has had her chemotherapy. She's now on a tablet form of chemo. She's had the most incredible care by the folk up at Antrim Hospital and also at Belfast City Hospital. But all I could say is, Linda, that we have got through, and Rose has got through, and I've got through as individuals and as a couple, simply through the blessing of God and the strength that God has given us. I'm not saying for 1 minute it was a bed of roses. It certainly wasn't. I'm not saying that there wasn't very, very difficult times. I'm not saying that there wasn't days of tears. But we're further down the track now, and I'm so thankful, thank God so very much indeed that we are in the position that we are in. We were fortunate how it was diagnosed and the prognosis and all it went through. But no, our faith played a massive part.
Come out the other side.
We'll come out the other side, and faith played a massive part. It gave us a daily strength, and as I say, when I see Rose, who is an absolute warrior, and I mean a warrior, my goodness gracious me, she's special.
Yeah, good. That's lovely. We've limited time left, but what drives David Jeffrey now? You've an MBE, of course, yeah?
Yes, well, again, I was blessed. I was given an MBE for services to association football in Northern Ireland, and also my contribution to community relations. I remember we went to Windsor Castle and was presented with the MBE by Prince William, and we had what seemed like ages, but it's a very, very quick chat.
Special day.
Very special day, but he made the point about the football, but he also talked about, I actually said I was really pleased with the contribution that being recognised to community relations, and he says, isn't sport and football a wonderful way of bringing people together? And that resonated, and I've used that example, I don't know in how many primary schools and how many chats with young people, but I think just wanting to continue to be able to serve, Linda.
You're making a difference on and off the pitch. It's lovely to talk to you, David Jeffrey. It's been a while since we caught up, and we could talk, I'm sure, for another half hour, but thank you for joining me today.
Linda, thank you so very much indeed. God bless you.
Thank you.